given a prescribed, it means that you are given a prescribed medication, and either you miss a dose or you didn't complete taking all the medicines that you are prescribed, or probably, for instance, you think this drug is for you to sleep. You take one dose, after an hour, 2 hours, you are not sleeping, and you go and take another dose. So it's more or less not following the dosing regimen prescribed by the physician. So that is what we mean by the misusing of drugs. So that is either underdosing, overdosing, altering the frequency, or stopping earlier than normal. And with that, the person has no intention of feeling high. So the problem with drug abuse and addiction is the motivation that I'm taking this drug to make me feel high. And we use drug and substance interchangeably. So in this case, the person takes a drug that changes the way they feel, they behave, or think. And largely this is because they feel high. So it's a high is a heightened form of pleasure. Just like when you are very hungry and you get good food, when you are very thirsty and you get water, you get some kind of pleasure. That pleasure you get, drugs of abuse give you a higher pleasure than that. So when you take a drug with the intention of feeling that pleasure, then we say you are abusing them. So when you abuse drugs, it can get to a level that you no longer have control over the drug use. And this is where it becomes a bit tricky. That in fact, there are some people who their brains are such that when they start using a drug of abuse, it's very difficult, if not impossible, for them to stop using until they get help. So when you start abusing because you want to get high, and then later you realize that you feel compelled to use, even when you don't have the initial reason why you started using, or you have this strong desire or urges to go for the drug when maybe you're at work or you're in school, and that is called a craving. Or you use the drug in an amount and periods more than what you had intended to. So for instance, if I want to drink beer this Friday, it is a Friday evening, I want to drink, but I wanted to drink one bottle. I ended up drinking 5 bottles. Then I've taken more than what I had intended to. So I do not have control. I decided that I will not drink and come to work. But I find myself drinking while at work or before I go to work, just for appetite. Whatever it is, it means you have lost control. And the last thing, so if you look at it, these are all CCC. So the last one is when the person continues to use it, when there are obvious consequences, harmful consequences, like I drink and fight with my children, I drink and fight with my wife, I drink and my boss complains, I've drunk before I had an accident, I had a medical condition, and the doctors told me that alcohol is the cause of my heart problem, my liver problems, I should stop drinking. So in spite of all these harmful consequences, I still continue to use. Then that is when we say you have the addiction. So it's basically like the 4 C's: craving, compulsion to use, loss of control over use, and continued use despite harm. And these are the different things that we have when it comes to drug of abuse. And when it gets to the level of addiction where these C's are in play, we actually don't need all of them. Actually, if you even get about 1 or 2 of them, you have an addiction. And that is when you must realize that it is a disease like hypertension or diabetes or asthma that you must seek help for. And seeking help for addiction does not mean you don't have strong willpower or you are a bad person or something. So people should realize that there's a disease called addiction because some people's brain cannot handle drugs of abuse. Thank you. Yeah, I can't hear you. Should I go on?
No, I think you are muted. Dr. Arthur, you are muted, though.
Yes, I was muted briefly. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Thank you
Should
very
I
much
go
for that. No, it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine. Thank you very much for that advice. Would hear from those from our panel members who would have that experience. I want them to share their perspective, not their experience yet, but their perspective on this topic. So I'll start with you, Stephen. Mr. Sankey, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Very good. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay.
What is your question?
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. I think that Dr. Dodo has actually said basically everything that I would have said. And it's true, when normally we start to use the substances, the idea is not that we want to use the substances to get to that point where it begins to destroy us. And sometimes the intention is just to deal with a particular sort of pain or emotion. But then before we realize, it goes out of control. And then it gets to a point where you genuinely want to stop, but then you have lost control, total control of it. And that is where the problem begins. And most of the time, our family members, like you originally said, are not aware when we are getting close to it, because not all the substances will show physical symptoms in the early stages. Some of them you will not see. Okay, so we end up finding problem for ourselves when we only intended to just escape some sort of pain, you know. And then, like he also said, like Dr. Dodo also said, that bit of euphoria that we are always looking for in life, it tends to be that big reason why we all keep coming back to the use of our substances. And so, like I said earlier, I think Dr. Dodo has summed everything that I was initially going to say. So thank you.
Dr. Dodo has illegally plagiarized your brains.
Charlie Stephen, I'm very sorry there.
All right, that's on the lighter note. Miss Tete, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Good. Can you share your perspective on the topic that we are discussing today? After that, I would allow you to give us your real first-hand experience, but on this occasion, the perspective on the topic that we are discussing.
Okay, so addiction. My name is Rebecca Tete, and a mental health nurse from Accra Psychiatric Hospital. But I would like to share, based on my experience, what I have actually been through in the disease of addiction and how it really affected me. And addiction is a disease, like everyone is saying, because I personally was born with the disease of a sickle cell, and I with the genotype of SS, and I have been having crisis since birth up till now. But until the moment where I started abusing the pethidine by myself was when a colleague of mine, who is a colleague in the health sector, he is a pharmacist, advised that why don't I use the medication, because I'm a health worker. So just to avoid me being set or dragged to the hospital all the time when it becomes serious. I actually didn't see this as a bad idea, because the last time he saw me was a time that I was put on a stretcher and I was in pain and I was almost naked because I was crying out of pain, and I didn't care who was in the hospital, who was looking at me or anything. But according to him, he saw me and it was too disgraceful, like for me to look that way when I was being sent to the hospital. And so if I have no control when the crisis comes, then why don't I, as a health worker, start doing it myself so that it doesn't get to that point where it will become so severe for me to be sent on a stretcher to the hospital. I embraced that idea of his. The little mistake I did was I didn't really Google or make inquiries about what that drug, the long side effects of that drug, because pethidine was something that was always given to me anytime I get crisis. And I thought it was just to bring my pain down, and that was it. And once I am discharged from the hospital, or once I am off the medication in the hospital, I don't have any reason to go chasing it, or I don't even know how, I don't even remember what it is. So then I felt I could also use it like that. And anytime I have pain, I just start it and then use it until the body became tolerated to the drug, such that anytime I have to start using from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, from 3 to 4, just to get that same effect I was getting from the beginning. So I remember that I started doing it secretly. It got to a time I started doing it secretly because my daddy got to know and was like, are you trying to say every day you get crisis? And I was like, oh, not every day, but at least I should have it by me. Anytime I'm in pain, I'll just use it. My daddy became very angry and was like, no, you don't have it on you. Are you trying to call the crisis to come all the time? So then why don't you just get rid of all these things, and whenever you are in pain, then we know what to do about it. So I felt he was becoming too inquisitive in my matters. So I started doing it secretly without even letting him know. And that was where that clarification of addiction dwells in secrecy started, because I ended up using it without anybody's intention in my corner somewhere. And once I hear the door knock trying to turn, meaning someone is coming in, I have to hide and then use this drug till I get to my high. It really affected me in several ways. It really affected my work such that I almost lost my job. It affected my academics because when I started, I was in school. So as the best student I had always been in my first year, it got to the second year, I was not going to class. I was always deteriorating in my academics. My principal got to know that I was being referred in a particular subject, and she didn't understand that, is it Rebecca you are saying she was referred? Because this Rebecca, we all know she's very intelligent. Until they set spies and they got to realize that I was using something, because my colleagues suspected, and then they told her that I was using something, that I was always injecting myself, that I'm always in pain and my condition. So then my principal perhaps had an idea about this addiction and then tried to find out, and later got to know that I was addicted to pethidine. In fact, it wasn't easy. My relationship with her broke because now she wasn't so nice to me like she used to be with me when I was so performing very well in class, to the extent that I had to be using my allowance. Every allowance I get, I had to be using it in getting my drug of choice just to become comfortable. It got to a time the allowance was not enough. I had to be calling other people just to get my source of drug to use. And it became so bad that financially, I became bankrupt. My relationship with people, my friends, my family, my loved ones, everything, like the trust was just getting broken. Like everybody never respected me again. In fact, they didn't want to have anything to do with me. And anytime I try calling somebody, the person has the idea, oh, she's coming to beg me for money. So then once the call is coming through and it is Rebecca, then it has to, they just have to either block me or refuse to pick up the call. So it really destroyed my relationship with a lot of people. Even I was very active at church, but I had to be suspending some of the roles I had to play at church. I had to be suspending certain roles I had to play at work. A lot of things that I had to do, I had to suspend them because I never had time again for myself and other important things that I was doing. Rather, my attention and everything was geared towards the drug And it was so selfish that anytime I'm using, it doesn't want me to have anything to do with anybody. It was just pethidine, and pethidine, not even food. To the extent that even if I'm hungry and I'm about eating, and then the guy who provides me with the pethidine calls me that, Becca, I am standing at your junction. In fact, the food, to hell with the food, it has to go somewhere for me to run chasing the drug of choice. So once I take it, no food, nothing. In fact, nothing, no better clothes, even my own personal hygiene, everything was rejected because I have pethidine. So pethidine has, to me, has done a lot of bad, because comparing the way it started by milding my pain and making me go through my crisis in a better way, comparing that good aspect of it, and then the negative aspects of it, when I got addicted to it, I realized that it has done me more harm than good. It never did me any good. So, in fact, my experience with addiction, all I want to say is, for me, misusing pethidine is quite different from me getting addicted, because me getting addicted to pethidine, irrespective of the negative effects I will get, I will still use, because that is where the addiction will set. That's when the addiction sets in. Once I don't care about the harmful effects of it, then I should know that I am really addicted to it. Because I was compulsively seeking and using the drug every time my body is calling for it. Once I wake up, I'm even dreaming of it. So once it's done, I'm watching my time. Is this time favorable enough for me to get the vendor for him to get me the drug? I was always looking at my time. Every little chance I get, I want to chase for the drug. So this addiction thing has really done me a lot of harm than good. So for now, that is what I want to end here, for other questions to also flow. Thank you very much for having me share.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tete, for expressing your experience. I must congratulate you. I know that it's not easy to share your experience publicly like that, and it takes a lot of bravery to do that. And I really congratulate you to share your experience with the hope that it would deter others from having that intention. I mean, your experience is clear. I mean, you all the C's that Dr. Dodoe mentioned was clear in there. None was missing. And to the horrific state that you find yourself in the very last end, signifies that everything, you've really had a bad experience. Thank you very much for sharing this with us. I would ask Mr. Sankey to share your experience with us if you're ready.
Okay, thank you again, Doc. I think we share, people that have used substances before or have been addicted to substances share common similarities. In my case, I was not diagnosed of anything, but right from secondary school, when I left secondary school, I had emotional issues. I had issues from home, and sometimes 1 or 2 struggles at home. And then one time my friends asked me to go out. Now, when we went out, it was just to have fun. And so I got myself a bottle of Gouda. That was it. Now, when we drank the Gouda that night, I remember it was quite fun for me. I had a confidence that I lacked all these years. I was able to really enjoy myself that night. And actually, that was the beginning of it. Anytime I wanted to have fun, anytime I wanted confidence, this was what I had to resort to. Now, I actually was working. I had a good job. And before even my interviews and all that, I would normally get myself a drink because I needed confidence to attend all my interviews and all. So you can see that I was actually rushing back to the substance because I needed confidence. I had no pain, no physical pain whatsoever. So anytime I was shy, I was lacking confidence, I needed some motivation to do something, I would drink alcohol. Now, throughout my life, I was working, I was actually successfully working. And so I was drinking successfully. It was giving me the confidence that I needed all this while. When I wanted to meet new people, I needed alcohol. It was working for me. It kept working until it finally decided to stop working for me. Now, when it started to stop working for me, that's where my struggles actually began. I would wake up in the morning, I want to go to work. First of all, I wake up with a hangover. Then to clear the hangover, I knew that I had to drink. So Monday morning, I'm going to work and I am drunk. I will actually sometimes, those of you know alcohol very well, I can take about 8 shots of K20 in the morning just to get to work. I sit in the office and I'm doing my work. I'm waiting for an opportunity for break. I step out for break just to eat small fufu. I will take more shots of alcohol just to eat my small fufu. Come back to the office, do my work. When I close, I get home, an opportunity for me again. I will drink before I sleep. This became a pattern to the point where I desperately now needed to stop. I had to quit all my jobs because I couldn't sustain any job. I get a job, give me 6 months, 3 months, I'm out of the job. Because what? The job was becoming too much of a problem for me. My lifestyle could not accommodate my drinking and my job at the same time. And one had to be sacrificed. For me, my job would always be sacrificed for my drinking. Why would I wake up in the morning, feel all these pains and still want to go to work? So honestly, work wasn't fun for me. Then when I came home and I didn't have a job, all the financial crisis and all that gets me thinking, gets me worried. And to solve that thinking and that worry, what do? I go back to drinking more alcohol. So basically my life, everything was centered around the drinking. Now, when I now genuinely wanted to stop, realized I was losing my health, I was losing my weight, I was losing every bit of me, and I genuinely wanted to stop, I couldn't stop. What didn't I do? Went to church. I'll go through some spiritual exercises, be sober for sometimes a week, a month, 2 months. I'll come back and I would only get worse. Now, it went on and on till finally I was literally in the streets. I'll see you and I'm asking for money. Give me money, give me this. Walking around bare-chested, doing stuff that I didn't intend to do. Until my church actually was the one that introduced the rehabilitation for me. When I got to the rehabilitation, that was when I started to understand that there was a possibility for me to get well. It wasn't an easy journey, honestly, because I've been drinking for so many years. And so trying to quit in itself became another problem. I'll go to the rehab, come back, I start. I don't have a job, I come back, I will drink. The slightest thing triggers me, I go back to drinking. And so the relapsing became like a norm for me until you get to that point where you're actually desperately in need of help and there's nothing but either you quit or you die. I got to that point and I guess I had to donate myself to the rehabilitation. When I did that, that was actually when my healing started. And today, I'm actually still in recovery. I've had a couple of years sober, but I'm now working in the field as a professional who is also helping others. So this is just my little experience with alcohol and marijuana and some other few substances that I use. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sankey. Integrating, both experiences. Let me say well, and for you also having that bravery to share your experience with us. I know you've done it several times, but still I must commend you for those experiences, and sharing them will change somebody's life. Putting your experiences together, one thing that is clear to me was that it was a endless intention. You wanted this for fun, and Ms. Tete also to relieve herself from pain. But the bottom line, the end result was you lost everything: work, family, your health, your finance, and drugs addiction does not end well. I would ask the professionals among us their experiences with others to see if we can align your experiences with what they also experience in the consulting room. Dr. Dodai.
Yeah. And many thanks for having me. So I think it's awesome to have Stephen and Berka join us. It's not easy to come out publicly and share your addiction story. And what they just shared are the exact thing we talk about. When you're addicted, there is a social decline in your life. So you lose social status. So where you were supposed to be, now you come down your social status, more like the prodigal son in the Bible. And so you come to your senses and decide to trace your roots to your father. You almost tend to go down till you are buried. And I'm very happy these two actually trace their route back. And the tracing your route back is largely the admission that you have a disease. Just as if I have hypertension, diabetes, I wouldn't treat myself even as a doctor. So we should realize that when people are ill, they should seek help. And that is the help they sought that helped them. So, and it's unfortunate that because we tend to put the moral bar for addiction, we refuse to see addiction as a disease. And people think it's a choice you made. When clearly, from what they have, elaborated, the initial use may be a choice, but the continual use is no longer a choice. It is not within their remit to say, oh, I have stopped. So that is why even those adverts, we've stopped them. Say no to drugs. Because you don't just say no and you stop. The brain works such that you can't stop. So let me pick up on what Becca was saying, that she now required more and more. So what happens is that there are brain centers that we have that receive the stimulus for us to feel pleasure. And that brain part is around our temples here. So it is called the temporal lobe. So that's the pleasure center. When we start using drugs, the receptors decrease in number. So the same amount of drug that made you high will not make you high again, because the brain has realized that I'm getting too much stimulation. Meanwhile, you also want the high. So the only reason you can get the high again is to increase the amount of the drug use. And unfortunately, when the brain gets used to the amount that you are using, when the level comes down in your blood, your brain begins to agitate again and say, hey, my alcohol level is low, my marijuana level is low, my pathogen level is low. So the brain will remind you that get more. And that is what we call the withdrawal syndrome. And that is what they will do anything just to get the drug. So like Becca said, when you observe your world, your children, your sibling, somebody you love and care about, having unusual need for money, increase in need for money, you must suspect it. I'm very happy that Stephen. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Dodai. You are entering into my next line of question, but please, if you can be punchy, now and end it, and let Chief also share his brief perspective on it, then let me go into my next line of questioning. Hold on. Okay. You are too much on fire. Okay. Hold on.
Okay. All right. Yes, Prof.
The expenses that we had.
Yes, thank you very much. And I'm hoping that you'll soon be looking at how do you recognize people who are beginning to use them, because I'm watching the time. But the point is that, yes, just as Dr. Dodoy has said, nobody starts using drugs with the intention of getting addicted. But the brain is configured such that once you have stimulated the pleasure centers, the brain wants to get some more. And interestingly, the more you get, the more the brain says, yes, you're doing well, bring more. And once you expose the brain to these drugs, they begin to change the cells, and then eventually the contents of the cells and the whole brain architecture. And then you are addicted. I keep making this analogy of fresh egg as against fried egg. So the brain without exposure is like fresh egg, which can hatch and give the chick. But once you expose the brain to the substances of abuse, by and by it gets fried, virtually, literally, and figuratively. So what happens is like what you see with the fried egg, and that is where the various complications come in. So we keep telling, and the brain has a certain memory for the drugs that can stimulate it so high. And indeed, people who use it will tell you something like cocaine, heroin, the pleasure of using is, they will describe as orgasmic pleasure. So intense that you'll be forced to go for more. And that is where the addiction there comes in. So when you eventually get out, you get treated, you manage to get yourself out of it. We encourage them never to see themselves as having recovered. Recovered means the brain has returned to the default level, the zero level, the original level. And as the original level, anybody can take a torch, a bottle of alcohol or anything, bottle of a beer, anything, and well decide and can decide that I won't go for any more. But once you have got to this stage of addiction and you are treated, the brain has a memory. So once you take a little bit of it, you quickly relapse. And that's why addiction generally is called a chronic relapsing brain disease. The tendency to relapse is really great. And these are the things that will get you to relapse. So once you are treated, eventually, never consider yourself as recovered, but every day is a day for you, recovering every day. Even after 20, 30 years, you are recovering a day at a time. And that's very important.
All right, thank you very much, Chief. It looks like this discussion will be a long one, and we'll get through it. To a very important question to you, Mr. Sankey and Mr. Te. Now tell me, are there simple signs that I could pick up from my son who is on this path? Are there simple signs that I could pick up to give me an indication that something is happening? I need to be careful. I need to take action. Mr. Sankey first, then Mr. Te.
Thank you very much, Doc. Yes, there are signs. There are signs. I think earlier I was saying that not all the substances will show physical signs. For example, if I drank alcohol, you could easily smell alcohol from my mouth. And so that in itself is a sign. So the physical signs that you can identify from people, that early signs are when you begin to see that your teenager or your child, for example, red eyes. Some of the, like marijuana, when you smoke marijuana, you are going to have red eyes. And so the child begins to avoid looking you straight in the eye. That is one sign. You find that the person begins to, for example, on social media, some of our children begin to post certain items, like certain things glorifying marijuana, or they are posting maybe their icons, public icons, whether an artist or something, an artist who is, for example, into marijuana a lot. And then people begin to glorify these people on social media statuses and all that. That is a sign you can look out for. You begin to see the person withdrawing from home, making new friends that you are not used to. Some of these friends, we normally don't want to bring them at home. We don't like to show them. So when you begin to see some of these signs, they are actually early signs that you can look out for. Now, people begin to also keep certain things at home. Razeless are those things that are used to wrap marijuana and all those things, lights, matches, all of these things, they are keeping them at home. Apart from that, sometimes the child becomes emotional. Someone that used to be very open suddenly becomes withdrawn or aggressive. Small conversation you want to keep with the person is either not interested or angry. These are some of the early signs that we can easily look out for. But like I said, for things like alcohol, you can easily detect, because the person can either look drowsy here and there. You can smell the alcohol. Even when your child begins to use a lot of perfumes, it should be something you should be concerned about. Some of these things are used to mask the smell, either of marijuana or alcohol. So when you see these signs, I think they are early signs that you can actually look out for. But I think now in our dispensation, where a lot of the young people are using a lot of social media, I personally believe that when you pay attention to what people post on social media, they will always say that I'm not what I post, but I believe that you are what you post. So there is always an aspect of who the person really is or wants to be in those posts. So when someone is posting something, songs that are glorifying marijuana, songs that are, they are suddenly desperate for money and all of these things, they are early signs that I think as a parent, you should begin to be worried about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are basic tips that are very informative. Mr. Tete, are you there? Hello? Mr. Tete? I think she might have stepped off. Dr. Dodoi, you were too much on fire and slowed down the fire. Can you pick up from where you stopped you? Now you can add more science. You started with the financial science. Can you add more science in addition to what Mr. Stanke has?
So just as Stephen was saying, he's just right on point. When your child is started having new set of friends, and not only set of friends, but new activities. I mean, if your child starts suddenly want to watch football outside than when there's a DSTV at home and all that, then this might be a sign of doing something. If they are increasingly demanding more money without knowing what for, if they are sleeping more or less, and especially if they come home late and sleep deep into the morning, these are warning signs. Because of the social decline that comes with addiction, they would definitely have relationship problems. And this would be either at school, at work, or at home. Because, I mean, if it's the man drinking, the wife will complain, I smell alcohol. Then the man will get angry. Then they will fight. So something will just crop up just because of the alcohol. When people are using, and again, it depends on what substance they are using. For instance, when they are using opioids, they can have a bad breath. And then they may have this coarse and slurred speech that they have. Some of them, like in alcohol, for instance, you can see them having tremors or shaking hands. Their hands will be shaking. And for me, since addiction is usually a disease of young people, we forget. And there's a reason why it affects young people more than older people. So since it gets to these young people, when they start losing interest in something that is kind of cardinal to their future, like if they are learning a skill, if they are in a school and they are not interested in getting the best of grades any longer, they're not interested in being the best mechanic any longer, they're not interested in learning something, when they lack that motivation, it's a telltale sign that they are into drugs. And this is largely because the front part of our brain here, called the frontal lobe, is where we make what we call, that's where we plan, we think and plan from. The temporal, the one at the temple are where we get the pleasure from. Unfortunately, the front one develops later than the temporal one. So when people are young, they develop the temporal one where the pleasure is. So they tend to make decisions more from how they feel than what rational, logical decision it makes. And that is where adults are supposed to guide young people, knowing very well that their frontal lobes are not very developed to make very good decisions. And they make decisions largely based on their feelings. So when you look at all these things, I mean, and we should also know the commonly abused drugs. Currently, the young people don't smoke cigarettes again. They will take alcohol. And in Ghana, there is alcohol mixed with marijuana called laka. Some call it or underground. Some call it hellfire or something. And it is so dangerous because the marijuana has about 400 chemicals in them, and they can dissolve in what we call organic solvent. Alcohol is an organic solvent. So if you put marijuana in alcohol, you get a lot of alcohol and marijuana at the same time. So when they take these things, they get the high as the professor said. In fact, the high they get is higher than the high that we get in orgasm during sex. It's higher, far higher than that. Unfortunately, this pleasure is linked to memory. So they don't seem to forget how they felt. So when they remember how they felt, oh, okay, let me do it the last time, then they end up. In Ghana, we have the tramadol and codeine, which people are not turning their attention to. It's very common now. It's the brand name is DF118, and it's also in some cough syrups. And people are abusing them. People are abusing morphine. The pethidine is also abused more from health workers, even though I've seen non-health workers getting addicted. And many people, those older may know of abrubable ball. And abrubable ball, I thought was a painkiller, only to grow up to learn that it is actually Librium or chlordiazepoxide. It works the same way as Valium or diazepam. And the diazepam or Valium is called blue, which is the 10 milligram. The 5 milligram is called yellow. All these things, they can all become addictive. Okay, so, and we now know that some people's brain have been wired to become addicted, but there's no way anybody can tell who will become addicted until you become one. So the best approach is to prevent it, so that if you don't get to start, then probably you don't get there. And if they have started, let's put in the effort and help them to stop early, because when you get far, it's more difficult to stop. And by that time, you'd have lost a lot of opportunities and burnt many bridges. You can never go to people again because you've cheated and lied to many people, and you cannot go back to them. You lose all your respect. So when we see it early, let's hit it hard. Let's go aggressive and manage it. And hopefully we'll get our youth to use their brown potential to develop our country.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dodoe. I think subsequently I have to give you time to make your presentation. You are too much on fire. I need to work on that. So I'll give you time to talk.
Professor taught me that.
Prof, Dr. Dodoe is making an accusation.
Well, this is a positive accusation.
This is a positive accusation.
Positive accusation.
Presenting the case as it is clearly and concise. Chief, is there anything that you would like to add to this point?
Well, I think as we are moving on, that's great. And as we began to talk about the recognition of the features, these are very important. As I said earlier, parents often deny. In fact, drug addiction itself is characterized by denial. Interestingly, parents also tend to be in denial themselves because they cannot imagine themselves having their sweet children, and often they play dual lives. What they are at home is separate from what they are outside. And so the parents only see what they are at home, and they may not see what they are outside. So if it's brought to their attention, the parents will vow heaven and earth that they cannot be true. But this is where they need to open their eyes and begin to appreciate that, yes, anybody can be subject to drugs of abuse or addiction. And then when it's pointed out to them, then they should recognize that. But among the things that you can see where the persons with addiction or beginning to abuse drugs, where they will show up, which parents will need to be very attentive, will be a change in their behavior, a change in their lifestyle. For instance, a young man who is not used to wearing glasses, and there's nothing wrong with wearing glasses anyway. A young man begins to wear glasses, and you simply say, well, maybe that's my boy, he's following fashion. For all you care, he's wearing the glasses to cover what the eyes are looking like. Because he smokes the cannabis, he smokes anything, and the eye becomes red, which is also part of the features of the cannabis abuse. And so he covers it with the glasses, dark glasses, and you don't recognize, you don't ask questions. Or somebody comes and now he has strong scent on him, like Dettol. you should ask the question, how come that now you are wearing this strong scent when earlier, or maybe any other type of perfume, when earlier you are not wearing it. But if you overlook it, you miss an opportunity to detect what is wrong. They may be wearing it to cover the scent of the tobacco or the marijuana, so you'll not see, you only hear the scent of the Dettol, and you get carried away. So that is very important. Of course, his hairstyle, and we are not saying Rasta is wrong in itself anyway, but this person comes when earlier was not wearing Rasta dreadlocks, and now he begins to wear dreadlocks. You need to find out. Maybe he's converted his religion, no problem, or whatever it is, you need to find out. The question is, be inquisitive enough. Indeed, once in a while, it does not have to go to your child's room to see what is there, or even probably put your hands in his pocket and see what is there. You might find something interesting. These are very, very important things you need to find. Or your ward for a short period has become moody when earlier he was a happy-go-guy, happy-go-gay person, and now he's moody. Why is he moody? Drugs, we say they are psychoactive, they could also be mood altering. So they will alter your mood, and that should alert you. Or suddenly he's become cheerful, gay. Earlier he was not like that. That should alert you. So these are early warning signs that you will begin to see. But if you overlook, at that point, remember, we said earlier when they are beginning to use from a period of non-use to social use, at that point, you can advise them to stop. They can stop on their own. But when they climb to the point where dependence, addiction, compulsive use comes in, it becomes difficult. So if you're able to detect the early signs, you can advise them, they can stop. If it goes beyond that, advice is no longer the point, because at that point, they are having a disease which needs to be treated. So that's why for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chief. I mean, at this point, if a parent is here and still haven't got the signs, I have been able to pick about 14 signs that are telltale signs that we can work on. I have picked, I know Chief, you would pick more, but I have been able to pick 14 signs that parents should be able to pick on them. So you cannot deny that I don't know, or my son would never. 14 signs. I have picked 14. I know that when I listen to this again, I'll pick more than 14. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, let me add that all our programs are being recorded. And after recording them, we put them on YouTube. So if you want to have a look at it again, you go to YouTube, just type in the title of the topic and it will pop up. We pass it through our Facebook channel and we get to YouTube. So Mr. Sankey, to add to this 14 signs that we as parents, we cannot say that we didn't see it. If all of a sudden my son is using strong perfume, he's making new friends, he's being aggressive, he's isolating himself, he's desperate for fans, his body is shaking, losing interest in academics and all that, and I do not see it. No problem. Are there any genuine things that we as parents, as responsibilities that we do that indirectly support this drug addiction, Mr. Sankey?
Okay, thank you, Doctor. I think Prof was actually saying it just some few minutes ago. Yes, some families or some parents actually believe that they trained up a good child, and there's no way that child can actually go, quote unquote, astray. So even the family members or the parents themselves live in denial. And like he said, denial is actually is the main reason how we all end up in our problem. So for family members, and sometimes we spoil our children. I keep saying, I believe that especially in our part of the world, most of us or most parents are very codependent. We train up young ones so that we can grow to be responsible. But even when we are growing, we find it difficult to give the children the opportunity to be responsible for their actions. And so we end up spoiling our children with either more money, too much attention, and all of that. So some people actually would be funding or be fueling the addictions of their younger ones. whilst in other cases, just the lack of the attention, because now a lot of family members, parents, to say, do not even have time for themselves. They just get up and they go to work, and so might miss all of this. So in fact, the parents, yes, the parents themselves live in denial, first of all, and they may be too codependent that when the young ones begin to find themselves in certain troubles, instead of them laying the rules straight, tend to now end up spoiling the children, which also in itself fuel more and more and more addictions for us. I don't know if this is enough, but there are more, but this is what I want to share.
Now, I wanted you to share that, even though Chief mentioned it, you have had an experience, and I wanted people to know that, yes, it's indeed the reality. That's why I wanted you to share.
Oh, okay. Honestly, when I was using, my family didn't know it in the beginning. Like when you start, it's difficult for my family didn't know that I was using. I was actually drinking successfully, going to work successfully. But my alcohol, for example, is legal, and socially nobody really has a problem with alcohol. So when you go to town and you drink and you come, it's one of those things. That was a problem in itself. Sometimes I go for a party, I get drunk, I get home, I sleep at home, I wake up in the morning, nobody's asking me anything. So I just keep doing that. And then when I started to develop the problem, when I wasn't sleeping at home, when I became very aggressive, that is when now family decided to comment. So yes, when you actually neglect these early signs, you pretend as if it is not there, it becomes a problem in itself. Like when my pattern changed, when now I started spending more time with friends, more time outside, my family really didn't complain because they felt I was old enough. Okay, so why? Let's give him some space. But that space, in fact, was what was leading me to my problem. So in my personal case, my family actually didn't take note because I started with alcohol. It was when I started with marijuana that I think they started to notice, because my eyes would always be red. I would always be sleeping when I shouldn't be sleeping, sometimes eating unnecessarily, being isolated and all of this. But with alcohol, they actually didn't see it at all.
All right, thank you very much. Now let's get on the road to recovery. How has it been like? Ms. Tete, are you there?
Yes, please, I'm here.
Good. Can you briefly describe how the recovery road has been like for you? What has been the main influencing factors in helping you with your recovery?
Okay, thank you for the question. First of all, willingness was the key, because willingness and acceptance. So once I accept that I am an addict and I need help to change from my old ways of life, to live a new way of life, and the willingness to check into the rehab, the willingness to change, that was where I found that help. And then again, too, I was so honest enough to share everything that I went through with my family, because once I started showing those signs and everything, declining grades in my class, and then always getting angry over unnecessary things, using resentment over the past issues, and then fear to go into the future, it was a sign that they could have detected that their child was leading a path of addiction, but they didn't find that. So I was honest enough to let them know the things that I was doing, and I accepted the necessary changes that also came across. Also, then I became honest enough. I am also honest enough to let them know anything that is around me. Whatever. I'm so transparent now. Wherever I'm going, I have to let them know, because as Sante said, one of the signs is that you're always isolating yourself and enjoying the company of your friends rather than your family when you used to. But now I make them know, if I'm going to work, I make them know my schedules at work, everything that I need to let them know concerning me going outside or anything. I'm being honest to them. And my honesty in relating to people, once I don't need it, I don't ask you, I don't lie to you that I need it. And that place, I'm also showing that honesty. And I've also kept an open mind to also listen and acquire and learn new ideas from people, because I realized that I couldn't help myself. Therefore, the help is needed from other people as well. And that is why I have opened my mind to new changes that perhaps I will need to help me in my journey of recovery. The ones that will help in my personality change, because it's more of a behavior disease kind of. So once I abstain from the drugs, I need to open my mind to also listen to how I can live my life in a more acceptable way in the society. And then humility is also another key in taking suggestions and then directives from people. Because once I am not humble, there is no way somebody will say something that I will take it so easily, because I feel I have gone through that experience. And so who are you to tell me? You get it? So I stay humble just to accept any suggestion that I think will be able to help in my journey of recovery. So the first key and the most important one is the acceptance, as Dr. Say said. Once you accept that you have, I think Dr. Dodoy instead, once you accept that you have the disease of addiction, you are open enough to embrace any help that comes with it. So accepting that you have that disease of addiction, or accepting that I had that disease of addiction, has brought me this far. And the fact that I am not so shy to let people know that this is what I have been through. I'm a sickle cell. I still get my crisis anyway, but I have been able to let my people at sickle cell clinic know that I have been addicted to pethidine before. So there is a no pethidine for Rebecca this time around. So once I get crisis, there are other medications that I use to manage my pain. And this time there is no self-medication again. There is no self-medication. If I wasn't honest enough and accepted the fact that this was my problem and I needed help, I'm not sure I would have gotten this far. And God is doing for me what I cannot do for myself. He's using these people to do a lot of things in my life, because I have accepted that I cannot let people in the world change for me. I have to change my character and then my attitude towards the things, the changes that happen in the world. You get it? Now I understand people rather than expecting them to understand me. And all these things are the keys that have helped in my path of recovery. And those are the factors that I'm using of late. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think that the key word is acceptance. First, accepting that you have a disease and you need to address it. Mr. Stanke, do you share similar sentiments?
Yes. I perfectly agree.
I'm sorry, but I would have to let you be a little brief, because I know attendees are yearning to ask questions. There are other questions, but I suspect that attendees will ask those questions. So the moment you finish, I would let attendees ask their questions, and I will twist them to see how it goes. So please go ahead.
So yes, I perfectly agree with what Becca said, and I share in exactly the same story. But for me, the little I would want to add is that my journey was quite rough, because I didn't entirely accept that I had a problem. I believe that at a point I could control. I know when Prof was talking, he said that the idea is that when you begin to believe that you are totally recovered, you begin to fall, because the mind has already captured these lessons already. So there were times when I felt that I could actually go back to managing my drug use, my alcohol use and all of that successfully. Anytime I tried, I failed. There were other times when I tried other substances to substitute for what I was doing. You know, I was always looking for that feeling. Like I said before, I was using the drugs to gain a lot of confidence to do certain things. I needed to have a certain personality. You know, with the alcohol, I was so funny. I was so fun to be around. I could say things boldly. Without it, I was totally boring. So for me, there were times when I had to struggle with that personality. And so occasionally my mind would feel like, okay, if I cannot drink alcohol and smoke marijuana, maybe I should try cigarette. Then I'll try cigarette. Maybe I should try snuff. Then I'll try snuff. So I kept sampling other stuff, which caused me to relapse several. Eventually, I'll come back to the old thing, end up in the rehab and all of that. Sometimes I just needed to meet new people. I got so nervous. I don't know who wants to deal with nervousness. Even to communicate like this back then would have been me highly intoxicated or probably under the substance, because to do this needed a lot of confidence. How was I going to do it? I always went back. And there was also that bit of me, that, how do you call it? In Accra, we say what? That too know bit of me. I knew too much for my own good. All the materials were given to me, all the lessons, I went through all of them. But there were times when I believed that I had my own creative ways of managing my life. I think most of us just want to deal with the emotion. When the emotion is gone, we want to live our lives anyhow again. So for me, it was not easy. I have really lapsed severally because of wanting to live a certain way of life. Today, I have the confidence. Even if it is not 100% the way I want it, at least whatever I get, I'm able to manage it. Today, I accept my emotions as they come, and I deal with them gradually. So this is the little that made my journey quite difficult for me. And working with other people has benefited me a lot. Volunteering to help in the rehab was the first step to my recovery. I saw people go in and out. I saw people who came with worse situations. People who were even bigger than I was, better than I was, come in. I saw people who were worse off. And all of these things served as lessons for me. And I think the more I stayed closer to people who needed help, the better I got my own recovery. So this is the little I would want to add to what Becca shared.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Dr. Dada and Chief, please note this question down for me. How would parents support their wards on the road to recovery? I know you've had immense experience with that. So note that question down for me. I would open the lines for attendees to ask questions. Then probably if I'm lucky, I'm sure somebody will have the same question and I'll allow you to answer that for me. So ladies and gentlemen, anybody interested in asking a question? Let me see by hand, then I could invite you. I don't see, okay, there is one hand up. Nesta, please unmute. Hello, Nesta.
Okay, hello.
Yes,
yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm very happy our brother and sister decided to share with us. It has been a great insight and God bless them so much. I just want to say that I appreciate them for their courage to share with us, to learn, and then help other people. I'm a nurse at Bantam Hospital. I have just 2 questions. I want to find out, how do we help people who refuse to accept they have a problem? Because we have families who are going through this. You want to help them, but they've refused that they don't have it. But you see every aspect of their life having this negative effect and all that. That's my first question. And I want to ask the gentleman, was he able to build his confidence without the alcohol with time? How he was able to do that? If you can share a little with that, I'll be grateful. Thank you.
Okay, I think Mr. Sankey answer the second part, and Dr. Dodoe would answer the first question. Mr. Sankey, please go ahead.
Thank you. How did I? First of all, I failed a lot.
How did you build it?
Yes, I must admit that I failed a lot of times, but gradually I learned to accept my emotion. You know, I feel that a lot of people, like the way I'm saying today that I had fears, it took me a long time to actually even realize that I had that problem. Initially, it didn't look like a problem to me. But today, I think I know myself better. And there are lots of people out there who actually do not know themselves as much as they even know their jobs. Okay, people know so much about their jobs, their clothing, than they know about themselves internally. So when I started to know more about myself and accepting what I call my weaknesses and my strengths was the beginning for me. So anytime I had to meet someone, there were times when I had to admit that I was nervous, and that nervousness was a natural human emotion. You know, over a period, I started to gradually get used to how to, courage, of course, is not the absence of fear. It's the fact that there's fear, but yet you still act. So for me, accepting that I had this as a problem was the first solution for me. and then gradually learning to what? Live despite the problem was how I got to this point where I can actually express myself now without the substances. Nesta, do you understand what I mean? So this is how I got to this point.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Dodai.
Yeah.
How do you help others through? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. This is quite a loaded question. Refusal to accept the therapy. And then
you have 2 minutes, Dr. Dodai.
Sure, I'll do that in 2 minutes. So refusal to accept the therapy and how parents support. So what we should understand is that addiction is not an individual illness, it's a family illness. So because when we have a person with addiction in our family, there are about 4 or 5 characters in the family. There's what we call the lost child who does not care or who is ignored because of the person with addiction. There's the scapegoat, the child or in the family who is blamed for the person being addicted. There's the mascot, one who can make joke of everything. There's the hero which is usually the mother who tries to take up the job that the person with addiction should do and try to kind of like cover up. The most difficult one is the one we call enabler. They enable the person to use substances. So if we, the healthcare providers, see this as a family illness, bring the family on board and make them appreciate that sometimes what they are doing to help the addict is actually enabling the addict. For instance, brushing things or sacrificing or denying themselves what they should do because of the addict, ignoring the problems. Sometimes what they themselves, the family members, especially the father, does to try to help or show love is what enables them. So we should talk to the family. We should have a family session and then get the family to accept the therapy. The family will also go through the therapy, and then we get the family to, get the person to accept therapy. If we also have an access through the person's employer or supervisor, we can work through the supervisor that, hey, this person is an addict, he has a disease, he is currently impaired. We want you to support him or her to go through rehabilitation and treatment. Probably if the person refuses, they may lose their job. So for fear of losing their job, they are likely to accept. But when we don't have something that can compel, we use the family to get them, to get the person to seek help. We have to let the family appreciate that the person with addiction affects the whole family and not only the individual, because it will cause a dysfunctional family. And it's very important to bring the family on board to get them to accept the therapy. The denial is a symptom of the condition anyway. So when they deny and they want the therapy, it is what the professionals should still see as a symptom of the illness that they must manage. So it is our job to manage that part for them to accept the therapy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dode. Ernest. Hello, Ernest.
Hello.
Hello, Ernest.
Hello. Yes, hello. Are you
yes,
hearing
Ernest,
me? Yes,
you are on.
Thank you very much. I honestly must appreciate.
Can you make it stop?
Very good. I appreciate being on this platform to enjoy this very discussion. My question is very simple too. I would like to know that how do you classify the use of simple drugs like painkiller, multivitamin, walking to the drugstore and to just buy them without prescription from a doctor? And two, the rehab centers that you mentioned, can we have specifically where they are so we can also help those in need, point them to? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your question, Ernest. With regards to the health centers, that will be the last thing that we'll discuss. before we close. And a lot of you are sending in messages about the recording. What I said was that when the program has ended, it will be uploaded onto YouTube. So you go to YouTube and type in the topic of today's seminar. Previous seminars, you can still type in their titles and you will have them. So I think I've answered the question. The first part of your question, simple, how do you classify simple painkillers like vitamin C and all that? Chief, are you able to help us with that? Chief, are you still there?
Yes, I'm still there. I will leave Dr. Dodoy because he actually mentioned it at the start. I'm sure the question was not there, no problem, but I'll leave Dr. Dodoy to answer that. But just on the link, you said they should just type the topic. So if you repeat the topic, then they'll remember, so they can use that. And after that, Dr. Dodoy will answer that question of drugs that are like prescription drugs, but people can go and take them. Where do they come?
Okay, at the end, okay, let me mention the topic for today. The topic for today is picking up subtle signs of first-time users of drugs by parents and wards.
I guess if they type drug abuse seminar, they'll get it. Drug abuse seminar, I'm sure.
I'm pretty sure, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, the long word is too mouthful.
Yes, I would note that and have that in the title. Dr. Dodai.
Yeah, I think that one is quite simple. Can we take other questions so that we answer them all, so that we can save some time? Or just go ahead. Yeah,
I agree with you. Yes, let's take other questions. Pakwesi, you're on. Hello, Pakwesi. Pakwesi raised his hand and his.
Good afternoon.
Pakwesi. Is that Pakwesi Clement?
Unfortunately, I'm a lady. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Is that Pakwesi Clement?
Yes,
no, I'm there, so let's go ahead.
Okay. Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, my question is that we know that people who abuse drugs and then decide to stop are likely to relapse. So what do we do? What are the things that we can do to help them not to go back to them? Unfortunately, I joined the meeting very late. I don't know whether it has been already discussed. But my question is that we know that they are very likely to relapse, like go back to the.
Yes, okay, thank you for your question. I think this question,
so what
has answered
we do to
help
them not to go back to their old.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right. Dr. Dodoy, would you give a brief one for her?
Yeah, sure. So, like we said, addiction is a disease. It's a chronic disease. People who have asthma, it's a chronic disease. No matter how much you treat them, they can get an asthmatic attack again. So people who have addiction can get the disease again. We've even stopped using the word relapse, because when people have hypertension and they get heart failure, it can come again. That is not a relapse. So what is required is that let's see it as a chronic disease. When we manage them at the rehab, we tell them, or they are taught steps to do, which Becca mentioned, a day at a time. You live it. So there are things you are supposed to do to maintain your sobriety. So we, the family and other people, should help them maintain the steps they were taught at the rehab to maintain their sobriety. Just like when you have hypertension, we give you medicine every day to take to maintain your blood pressure low. But when it goes high, you can get a stroke or you can get a heart attack. The misuse of drug, as the earlier questioner asked, about going to buy multivitamin and stuff like that. So that is misuse of drug. So you are not using the drug as prescribed, but you do not have the intent of getting high. If you have the intent of the drug getting you high, then you are abusing the drug and you stand at risk of getting drug addiction. And that is the difference. So the difference is largely the intent. So if you go and buy multivitamin that will say take 3 times a day and you take it 4 times a day or once a day, that is misuse of drug. Or we are supposed to take a drug for 2 weeks and take it for 1 week. It's misuse of drug. It also has got its own many consequences. Like in antibiotics, you build resistance and it will be difficult to cure the disease if it happens in somebody else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dodoi. Dr. Kofi Sutherland, are you there? Hello, Dr. Kofi Sutherland. Can you hear me?
My brother. Yeah, I can hear you. This is just a Dr. Dodoi. We have people religious sects, like the priests. I've handled about 2 of them, and they don't have family. But the problem is that people that are with them, especially with their religious group, don't see this as a person is misbehaving, and it becomes very difficult when handling those people. And
Dr.
a few cases have even referred to.
Dr. Salam, please,
yes.
the early part of your submission, the early part of your submission, we missed it. Your line wasn't that good. Can you please?
I'm saying that when you are dealing with people in religious groups where they live in communities, like the priests and pastors and other things, without their family, they live in a community, but because of the way they intertwine their religious belief, they see somebody who is addicted as being a deviant, as if the person is misbehaving, not being sick. And it becomes very difficult to get them on board to rehabilitate the person. What is your experience about this? How to handle them? Because they don't have families, they live in religious groups. How do you handle them?
All right.
Are you hearing me?
Thank you very much. Yes, we are hearing you. Dr. Dodoi, did you hear him clearly? Good. Please,
yes.
Please
I did.
go ahead.
I mean, yeah, the challenge with the religious part, I am a Christian, I'm active in my church. It's largely because they use the moral bar because they think you had a choice and you have control over the disease. So it's largely from lack of knowledge because they don't understand what a disease is. And this is not new to humankind. When we didn't know the cause of epilepsy and seizures, we thought it is a spirit that will seize you and begin to shake. So, but unfortunately, that was about 300 or 400 years ago that the West thought so. So, if in today's age, we still do not see the signs and do not see the reason that somebody being an addict is sick, it's purely because we don't understand. And in this regard, I must commend the Catholic Church. It's one religious organization I have found that, they truly understand addiction and they actually have centers to treat their priests and nuns and other parishioners who have the disease addiction. So the Catholic Church has actually moved a step, and I think Action Faith also has a rehab. So a few of the churches are coming around to appreciate that addiction is a disease and they are not just praying for them, but seeking the medical help, which has been shown to treat them, and they are doing very well.
All right, thank you very much. Chief, would you like to add something?
I think it's fine for now. And well, it's very important that we recognize it as a disease, and that has been highlighted all along. But it's not easy for the general populace. I was listening to a radio program in which obviously learned people, the order of a high-ranking police officers and others, and they're talking about suicide and drug abuse. And they were talking, one of them was saying that, you see, these things don't happen just like that. A spirit enters you and tricks your mind, and it gives you, it enables you to do this. And I thought that was really unfortunate, but it is not an isolated situation. So if you have this in the society, in high level people thinking that way, pastors hammering on that, that is really, really unfortunate. And that is where we will need to address some of these measures too, and get them to appreciate that, yes, it's not, there's nothing spiritual about that. There's absolutely nothing spiritual. It's very important. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Chief. Chief, it looks like we are almost out of time. Can I have your permission to add about 20 minutes? Because I have about 5 people hands up.
Fair enough. Fair enough, go ahead.
Hello, Chief.
Yes, fair enough, go ahead.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, Betty. Hello, Betty. Hello, Betty cannot hear me. Mr. Nsia? Mr. Nsia, are you there? Matheson?
Yes, please.
Hello, Mr. Matheson.
Hello,
Please go ahead with your question.
Sure. Thank you.
Yes, I can hear you. Is that Matheson?
Yes. Interestingly, my question is tied to this whole thing about religiosity attached to mental health. And my question is, we know that the rehab centers, I've not been there before, but I'm so sure that the center is, scientifically researched and using proven methods in helping patients recover. But before that, I'm sure that before any person will end up in the rehab centers, they might have gone through a series of prayer sessions, or trying to go through deliverance and a host of others. Can we juxtapose or compare the activities that goes on at the religious centers, and whether we have proven data to confirm or deny that patients who go through the religious centers do not fully recover, or do not recover at all, or fully recover from some of these mental challenges that they go through?
All right. Dr. Dodoi answered a bit of that question. I would allow him to elaborate more on that. Dr. Dodoi, please go ahead.
Get me in again. So it's asking about the rehabs. Oh.
Yes. The rehab and the religious centers.
Yes. It is. I mean, like I said, I'm also of the religious background, okay? And I am a mental health expert. There is nothing that we have in Christianity. I don't know much about Islam. That makes us want to believe addiction is a spiritual problem. So that thing about it is not as if I don't believe in spiritual healing. That is my faith. I mean, I believe in spiritual healing. But once God has opened the way, enlightened doctors to understand how a disease works, and has given us the way to manage the decision, I think it's a bit preposterous to say that, Lord, I don't want this solution this time around. I just want to pray and you heal me. it's for me, it's just akin to saying that you have an accident on the motorway, you are bleeding, and you stand there and pray that God should stop the blood, because God can really stop the blood if you are a Christian, you believe that. But God has given us wisdom that, hey, if you are bleeding and you go to the hospital, we can stop the bleeding and then you will survive, you will live. So we are supposed to apply that wisdom. The knowledge so far has shown evidently that addiction is a disease, because it's not everybody who takes alcohol or drugs become addicted. There are people whose brain cannot handle alcohol, and they are the ones we are saying that if you are one of them, yes, you need help. Nobody is saying don't drink alcohol at all. I mean, but what they are saying that there are definitely people whose brain cannot handle alcohol or drugs. There's no way anybody can know that one until you become one. So the best thing is not to get there. And just as when people are sick of any condition, liver failure, hearts, we pray for them as Christians. That does not mean we ask them not to take their medication. So I really don't think the two are mutually exclusive. Rather, the two complement each other. You can have your faith, believe in whatever you want to believe in, or whoever you want to pray to. But if you have a malaria, we have anti-malaria that is used to treat it. You can still pray ahead of that or with that. So addiction, as we have come to understand, is a disease. There is a way to manage it. Just seek help. There are rehabs. There are, not even every addiction is the same. They are managed in different ways. So when you seek help, you will be assessed. You will have a diagnosis, the severity of the addiction, and then you get the treatment that will suit you. Nobody will stop you from praying at that time. But praying alone, I think it is wrong and it's not what the Christian God wants us to do. Otherwise, he wouldn't have allowed us to have this knowledge. And people should move away from this spirituality thing about disease causation. This was 300 and 400 years ago. The world has moved on. We cannot still stay in that backward thinking that what we don't understand is caused by spiritual means. Because we don't understand, that is why the church says it is caused spiritually. It's purely from the lack of understanding, unfortunately, which I am part of the church too. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dodoy. Jamie. Hello, Jamie. Jamie, are you there? Jamie can't hear me. Abigail. Hello, Abigail.
Hello, Jamie is here. Jamie is here. Good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon, Jamie. Go ahead.
Yes, I have really enjoyed the program. Dr. Say and Dr. Dodoy. I'm Jamila from Accra Psychiatric Hospital. I just wanted to make a small contribution on the fact that it's not about Christianity alone. I'm a Muslim, and there are actually about 10 verses in the Quran that talks about staying away from drugs because it's harming this in synchrony to the Christianity version that Dr. Dodoy brought in.
Hello,
and then to add up to the fact that PDs. Please,
we lost you a bit.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Okay. Yes, I'm just saying that Islam frowns upon drugs just like Christianity. So let's put religiosity as religion aside, and then look at what is happening. As Dr. Dodoy rightly said, it's a disease. And now we even have OPD rehabilitation centers. So it's not all about you coming to sleep here. There are programs to suit each and every individual.
So let's make use of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Hello, Abigail. Abigail can't hear me. Betty. Okay, good. I think those who raise their hands now can't hear me. And so we'll go for the last round of remarks from our panel members, and we'll bring the program to a close. So I'll start from you, Ms. Tete. Ms. Tete, are you there?
Yes, please, I'm here.
Good. Can you share your closing remarks on the program so far?
Okay, so as we have all explained and then shared our ideas and questions, and that has been answered about addiction, all I want to say is that addiction is real. Anyone at all can get it because it is no respecter of persons. Addiction doesn't know the kind of qualification you have or not. It doesn't know the age as to whether you are young or you are old. Someone's addiction started at 16 years. Someone else own started at 45 years. So addiction is such that it has no respect for whoever you are. So it is real and anyone can get it. The same way, once you are an addict, you can also stop using drugs. All you have to do is to do the things that you need to do to maintain yourself in recovery. It is a chronic relapsing brain disease. So there is a tendency of it reoccurring anytime. Once you stop doing the things you have to do. And you can also lose the desire and find a new way of life. Once the change occurs, there is freedom. Now I am free. And I'm making sure I do the things that I have been taught to do. In as much as I am putting God first in everything that I do, I make sure I attend my meetings and all the things that I was taught to do so as to maintain that recovery. I work for it. Nothing good comes easily. So I work to the best of my ability by learning and practicing the principles that will help me stay clean in all my affairs. Now I am free. I'm free from drugs and I'm free from that self-obsession that was always worrying me to go for it. So then I also want to say that looking at me now and me testifying that I am a recovery addict, you don't need to stigmatize against me. You should stop that stigmatization and reach out to people in addiction because they really need help and support to become like any of you. We should treat them with love. We should tolerate them. We should be patient with them because if we are not extending that hand of help for those people, they will not be able to come out boldly to tell you their problems. Trust me, somebody like me who is a woman, it is very difficult in our setting, like our culture in Ghana here, for women to be seen as addicts. So once you find a woman who, with those subtle signs that the person is leading the path of addiction, please draw near to the person, reach out. Be receptive enough to allow the person share, because once the person is using the drugs, it might be because of certain emotional problems, and it's normal. Once you drive the person away from you, the person finds solace in using his drug of choice. So she goes in there to use a drug of choice just to feel comforted, because no one is reaching out. And so we should reach out to people in addiction. And then we should know that there are places where we can extend help to them, like the rehabs and all other places. The rehabs are there, they don't only teach.
Thank you very much, Becky. We are running out of time. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Please.
Good.
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, Becky, thank you very much for your remarks. As you all can see, I've shared a slide on the screen. Those of you interested in places that we could help our loved ones to seek support, I've shared it on the screen so you can take pictures in case you don't want to forget. I think at this point, I would ask Mr. Sankey to also share his closing remarks. Mr. Sankey.
Thank you very much, Doc. I'll make it brief. I think I'm very passionate about this whole conversation of spirituality, religion, and all of that. In my practice, in these few years of my practice, like Dr. Kofi also said, there have been people who have not gotten recovery just because of their beliefs. I've come to understand that spirituality and religion are not the same, though religion will lead to an improved spirituality and all. In the evidence-based practices that we adopt, I believe that there's even a faith-based one. But I think the bottom line is that I feel that in the spiritual practice or in the religious practice, we fail to go about it in a structured way. I know that recovery or treatment of addiction involves a structured program of help. It is not just an issue of advising someone or praying for someone, but then it involves what? A structured program of help. The point where spirituality and science would meet one day, when we get to that point, it will be beautiful to see that then everyone can actually assess. Yes, there are people who get treatment in different ways. I have seen faith-based, which works. So I'm very passionate when I hear conversations concerning religion and all of that. I just pray that we all understand, yes, of course, it is a structured program of help. And whether it is religious or whatever, once it is structured, then I think everyone can get recovery, just as those of us who were once addicted have gotten our recovery today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dodoi, would you like to take it over now?
Yeah, sure. I mean, and let me start from the religiosity part. I must say that, in fact, addicts tend to love themselves more than those of us who are in the church or who are religious. When an alcoholic that does not have money, another alcoholic will buy alcohol for them. When they don't have drugs, another addict will buy drugs for them. If we claim we are Christians and we are following Christ, probably we should show a higher love than this and love the persons who have addiction. It is not their fault. Nobody chooses an illness. So the church must rise up to the occasion and support people with this condition. It is very expensive to treat addiction, and the church must rise up to support them. And it's important because addiction is a disease of the young, and young people are those who fill up the churches these days. So we should invest in addiction and rehabilitation of young people. And our adolescents and healthcare, our adolescent healthcare in the country seem to gear towards reproductive health, which I find a bit unfortunate. Because adolescent health is largely mental health and reproductive health. The mental health is the self-esteem. As Stephen shared, when he didn't have that confidence, which we could have helped him with assertive training. And once he had that training as a youngster, he wouldn't need drug, which removed the social inhibition that made him think he had now more confidence. So if we had incorporated mental health and addiction messages in our adolescent healthcare, somebody like Stephen, we could have saved him from getting this far before he got back. So let's pay attention to our adolescent healthcare. Let the church begin to invest in addiction and save the souls that we are leaving there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dodoi. I think finally, Chief would give his remarks and sum it all up to this beautiful program that we've had today. I mean, it's been, well, let me stop talking, Chief.
Maybe one of these days, we will need to hold a similar seminar on religion and the mental health, maybe religion, culture, and mental health. Because that is
All
really,
right,
really crucial. Yeah.
I'm noting it down, Chief. I'm noting it down.
But I think that right now, if there is, you wake up in the morning and you stumble over a stool, the first thing that comes to your mind is, are the witches after me? But if you can reverse that thinking and that we try to explain everything in scientific terms as a first port of call, and it's only when we fail that we may look at other things, then I think that will help us a lot. That is largely one main difference between us and the developing world and those in the developed world. They see things scientifically, we see things religiously. Ghanaians are religious, no doubt about it, and it's really very good. Indeed, about probably 99% of Ghanaians are religious. What is worrying is we tend to take our religiosity to superstitious dimensions. And that's what we need to work hard to overcome that. Now, coming back to this point, a question came, and I'm not sure that we have addressed that adequately. And that how do we support parents who are getting their wards go through recovery? A lot of what you said will address that. But another dimension that I think we need to get them to understand is that even as you said that addiction is a relapsing condition, they are likely to relapse a number of times, so likely to go back into the condition a number of times before they eventually get out. That is fundamental to appreciating the issue. Because you take your son or your ward to a rehabilitation center, and the person may spend 6-9 months and comes back, and you think he's got a miracle cure and that he can't go back. If he gets back, you will be disappointed. And out of that disappointment, you may abandon the child. We are saying it's important to understand that this condition is a relapsing condition. And many people will go through about 5 to 10 times of relapses. About 70% of people may go through about 5 to 10 times of relapses before they get their well-being. And that is very important. If parents appreciate that, they will be patient with their wards. If practitioners ourselves appreciate that, we'll be patient with the wards. And if patients themselves, clients themselves, recognize and appreciate that, they'll be patient with themselves. And once you are able to get through, please avoid the very areas you were working with, which sent you to that. There was a popular musician in Ghana, gone to the other world anyway, and he went through this rehab a number of times. Finally, he went to South Africa, and when he got well, he was coming back. His colleagues said we're going to organize a concert for him, and I said that is dangerous. I wanted to find a way of cautioning him not to honor the concert, but I couldn't find any way. They organized, and from there, he went back into the addiction, and he never recovered from that. He died. So it's important that once you are getting out of this condition, please avoid in fact, even cut off the friends and make new friends. Cut off the areas you were going to where you were drinking, like the blue kiosk. Even your way to your job, if it was in front of the blue kiosk, avoid that and find another route. If you avoid these things, we are likely to reduce the triggers that would precipitate our going back into our former situation. But on and all, I think we've had a wonderful discussion, and I'm sure that you'll carry through, and with the next one, it will similarly be interesting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief. Thank you very much. I think this has been a very insightful program discussing, picking up subtle signs that we can use to detect if our ward is getting into drug use for the first time. And for me, the signs that I picked about 14 signs, which includes isolation. The individual will isolate himself, either become aggressive or moody, would have red eyes, using strong perfume, glorifying his or idols that are interested in drugs on the social media, desperate for fans, would have slurred speech, bad breath, losing interest, particularly in the academic contents that would have importance in their life. All these are signs that we could pick up. On the recovery aspect, one word that hits me is acceptance. If the individual accepts that he or she has a problem, a disease, and needs help, it helps. But on the other side, the family must also come in to support. His or her network must also be non-judgmental and have empathy towards the person. Religion has its part to play. So just like Chief is saying, another program fully on religion and mental health. How interesting that would be. I think that's when Dr. Jamna Bouadji and co would have to represent and have that discussion. On the whole, we've had a very fruitful time. We've not wasted our time at all. And so I would want to say a very, very big thank you to our panel members, to you, Mr. Stephen Sake, to you, Ms. Rebecca Tete, to you, Dr. Eugene Dodoe, and to you, Professor Apusi Osei. We say a very big thank you so much for being part of this. Your expositions have thrown more light on this drug use. I must tell you, I've picked a few that I never had an idea about. And to you, our attendants, without you, we wouldn't be here. And you've come in your numbers. And mental health would want to also say a very big thank you. Spread the message. Let people understand that we have a big problem on our hands, that people need support. People should not get there. We are not leaving anybody behind. We don't want people even to get there for us to leave them behind. We should prevent them from getting there. So we thank you so much for being part of this. As usual, this is a monthly program, and God willing, if we are all alive, next month, same time, we'll have another program. I can't share the topic now, it has not been affirmed yet, but God willing, we would have another seminar. So be on the lookout, parents, be on the lookout for your wards. We are not saying we are suspecting them, but I mean, it's possible. Looking at how these signs are very simple and we overlook them, we need to open our eyes now. So be on the lookout and also know that there's help out there. There's really help out there, and we should be supportive. We should not be judgmental over their condition. It was a harmless intention, but it went overboard and they're in a problem. They have a disease now, so we should help them. On that note, I say a very big thank you to all of you and have a blessed and a wonderful weekend. Thank you so much. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, y'all. That was excellent moderation.
Thank you, Eugene.
Eugene, I'll get in touch with you later.
Okay then, bro.
Dr. Eugene, people have requested for anonymous, so you should expect a lot of calls.
Don't worry. Well, that's fine.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right. We'll see you next month, God willing.
Betaka.
Yes.
Betaka.
Yes, I can hear you.
Please, will you close the link right now? Will you close the link right now?
This particular link.
Will you close the meeting for all right now?
Yes, I'm ending the program right away.
Pardon?
I am ending the program right
I'm asking if you close the meeting for all.
Yes.
Okay. So what's happening?